For a long time, the dream of freedom felt urgent to me. Not just important, urgent. Because if I'm honest, a big part of what made the goal feel so heavy was the fact that I was unhappy where I was. Not in some dramatic, unbearable, everything is falling apart kind of way, just in a slow, draining kind of way. A bored kind of way. A restricted kind of way. The kind of feeling that builds when you know deep down that the life you're living is not the life you want to stay in forever. And when you live with that long enough, freedom doesn't just feel like a dream. It feels like relief. It feels like escape. It feels like the exit door. Hi, I'm JP, and lately I've realized something important. Freedom still matters deeply to me. I still want it. I still want the ability to step away from a life that feels too small for what I'm trying to build. But the feeling around it is changing. It doesn't feel like escape in the same way anymore. And because of that, patience feels different now. For a long time, the end goal carried a lot of emotional weight, not just because of the opportunity it represented, but because of what it seemed to offer me relief from. The lack of freedom, the lack of ownership, the boredom of doing work that didn't feel connected to the future I actually want. That matters, because when your current reality feels restrictive, the dream starts to glow a little brighter. You don't just want progress, you want release. You don't just want the future, you want out. And when that becomes the emotional engine behind the goal, something subtle happens. The timeline starts to feel too slow. Every month feels like a delay. Every year feels too long. Every sign of progress still feels insufficient, because the part of you that wants freedom is not thinking structurally. It's thinking emotionally. It's thinking, just get me there. That's the danger of building from escape. Escape distorts timing. It makes later feel unacceptable. It makes patience feel like punishment. It makes process feel like an obstacle instead of the path. And I've felt that. For years, I've wanted trading to become real, not just because I believe in it, but because I wanted the life on the other side of it. I wanted the freedom. I wanted the focus. I wanted the ability to stop giving my time and energy to something that left me feeling underused. And because of that, there was always this tension underneath the journey, this quiet desperation, not always loud, not always obvious, but present, the kind of inner pressure that says, please let this happen soon. And the problem with that kind of pressure is that it can make you rush what should be built carefully. It can make you crave the outcome more than respect the structure. But lately, something has changed. And I think episode 38 was the first time I could really name it properly. After just over 4 years of trading, I've finally reached a place where I can feel my emotions without letting them run the decision. I still feel frustration. I still feel disappointment. I still feel the pull sometimes. But I'm no longer revenge trading. I'm no longer FOMO trading. I'm no longer making undisciplined decisions just because the emotion in the moment feels strong. And that shift matters more than I expected it to. Because it changed more than just how I trade. It changed the emotional temperature of the whole journey. When you trust yourself a little more, the future stops feeling quite so frantic. When your behavior becomes more controlled, the process starts feeling more believable. And when the process becomes more believable, the outcome stops feeling like something you need to force. This is the deeper truth I've been sitting with. I don't just want out of the job. I want in somewhere else. That's the difference. For a long time, freedom felt meaningful mainly because it represented what I could leave behind. Now it feels meaningful because of what it would allow me to move toward. I want to be free to fully focus on what I'm building. That matters more to me now than simply escaping boredom. Yes, I still feel the boredom. Yes, I still feel the lack of freedom. Yes, I still know this current structure is not where I want to stay. But what pulls me forward now is not only the discomfort of where I am, it's the clarity of what I want to give myself to fully. Trading, building capital, building something sustainable, building something real enough that it can carry responsibility, not just emotion. That shift changes everything, because once the goal becomes construction instead of escape, patience becomes easier to carry. And that's really what this episode is about. Patience feels different now. Not because I suddenly love waiting, not because I've lost ambition, not because I no longer care how long it takes. I do care. But for the first time, the waiting doesn't feel like pure frustration. It feels more like alignment. It feels like I've finally accepted something I used to resist. If this is going to be real, it is going to take time. If this is going to last, it has to be built properly. If this is going to replace the life I have now, it cannot be built on desperation. It has to be built on structure. And I think for a long time I understood that intellectually, but not emotionally. Now I'm starting to feel it emotionally too. And that makes patience more genuine, less forced, less performative, more rooted. What I want now is not just a fast exit. I want a solid one. I want the kind of freedom that can hold, the kind that does not collapse when pressure comes, the kind that does not require constant scrambling to maintain, the kind that actually deserves to be called freedom. And that means building it properly matters more than leaving quickly. That's maturity. At least, I think it is. Because immature ambition says, get me out as fast as possible. Mature ambition says, build something strong enough that when you step out, you don't have to run back. That's a very different mindset, and I'm grateful for it, because I don't want to escape one structure only to create another fragile one. I don't want freedom that only works in ideal conditions. I want something tested, something proven, something that can survive real life. And real things take longer than emotional urgency wants them to. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean the current job suddenly feels wonderful. It doesn't. I'm still bored a lot of the time. I still feel the limitation of giving my energy to something that doesn't belong to the future I'm trying to build. I still feel the lack of freedom. That hasn't magically disappeared, but it no longer gets to control the pace of the build. That's the difference. I'm no longer letting dissatisfaction decide the timeline. I'm no longer treating boredom like permission to rush. I'm no longer giving my frustration more authority than the structure requires. That's growth. Not flashy growth. Not externally impressive growth, but real growth. Because sometimes maturity is not about wanting less. It's about refusing to let what you want distort how you build it. I think this is one of the clearest signs that something in me is changing. Freedom is starting to feel less like escape and more like focus. Less like running away and more like stepping fully into the right work. Less like relief and more like responsibility. And honestly, I think that's healthier, because escape is emotional. Construction is intentional. Escape wants speed. Construction wants strength. Escape asks, how fast can I leave? Construction asks, what kind of life am I actually building? And I want to build it well. That doesn't mean I don't still want the outcome. I do. But now the outcome feels less like something I need immediately in order to feel okay, and more like something I am willing to build steadily because I want it to be real. That is a very different kind of patience. For a long time, freedom felt urgent because it felt like relief. Relief from boredom. Relief from restriction. Relief from a life that didn't fully fit what I knew I wanted to build. But lately, something has shifted. I still want freedom. I still want to fully focus on what I'm building. I still know that this current chapter is not the final one. But now I'm less interested in escaping quickly and more interested in building properly. And maybe that's what maturity looks like. Not losing the dream, not lowering the ambition, but carrying it differently, with more patience, with more structure, with more respect for how long real things take to build. I'm JP, and I'll see you in the next one.